This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. Visit bitrefill.com for more information. Welcome back to another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. In today's episode, I have Andres from Venezuela Insider back on the podcast for a second appearance. The last episode came out a year ago, so you guys can check that out. So Andres is back as everybody has questions about Venezuela, and it's a constantly changing situation down there. So happy to have Andres back. Andres, how's it going, man?
Very good, Vance. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And so Venezuela Insider, you guys can check it out. It's a YouTube channel. He's on Twitter, all the platforms, and it's a consultation service for expats, digital nomads, and travelers looking to travel and invest in Venezuela. So, of course, you guys can hit up Andres at any time. Let him know that My Latin Life sent you, and you're going to get treated well if you want to, buy property there, or you're trying to get the visa, whatever. And so I've had people reach out to me to see how they can get involved, right, in the changing situation in Venezuela, because it does seem there is good news coming out of Venezuela, and people ask about it a lot. So we thought we'd have Andres back and see what new information we can get about how things are going down there.
Okay. Well, first, I have to say the situation is been choppy on this year, for good or bad. Depends on who you ask. Will be some bullish sentiment and bearish sentiment regarding Venezuela.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's I think I'll start by with some questions, which is uh, half of our audience is American, and they want to know: is it even possible for an American to get a visa to Venezuela if they invest,
Eh,
or if they apply at the embassy for a tourist visa, or is there any situation under which an American can get a visa for Venezuela?
Well, it's not impossible, but the odds are low for many reasons. It goes to diplomacy. Venezuela, the rule of thumb that you want to follow regarding Venezuela on the macro aspect is that your odds at doing something in Venezuela, I'm talking on the governmental and bureaucratic level, it's going to be as good as your passport, your nation, your home nation has good diplomatic relationship with Venezuela. It's going to be easier, and the less, let's say, less good diplomatic relationship is going to be harder. Sadly, for Americans and Canadians, I have to say as well, it's a tricky situation to get a tourist visa. Most of the American citizens and also the Canadian citizens that visit Venezuela and they get some sort of visa depending on what their requirements, it's gonna depend either it's gonna depend on their situation, and it's a tricky process. You have to follow certain rules, and it's a lot of bureaucracy, and it should not be the case. But I mean, it is what it is, and it's very tiresome to navigate. But it's not impossible. The two ways that they do it, both American and Canadian citizens visit Venezuela, is either they grind it out and get the visa, at least the tourist visa, or they have a second passport that allows them to visit Venezuela, of course.
Mm. Let me start with the second question first. So let's say an American has a second passport, but it shows their place of birth as the US, so it's kind of obvious they are American, but they have a second passport from Italy, from somewhere else. Are they still able to get some sort of visa with a reasonable likelihood of success, or does the simple fact of it saying place of birth US put them in the same boat as, someone with a US passport that would have to with only one passport?
Well, first, if they have a second passport, for instance, let's say a Mediterranean passport, they can freely travel to Venezuela, of course, using their second passport. Now, if they want to go deeper, they want to go further on, let's say, doing an investment, for instance, it's gonna be a little bit frowned upon. However, legally, they have the right to just apply for the visa, and they will have a better chance of success if it's a long-term visa. And for short-term, for just visiting the country with the second passport is just good enough in order to just visit the country.
Okay. Yeah, because obviously if you have an Italian passport or whatever, um, you can use that passport to visit Venezuela on a tourist visa, and it sounds like the Venezuelan border agents are not going to deny you for the simple fact of being born in the US, as long as you can present, a Mexican passport or a Italian passport, something like that. So
Yeah,
that's
yes,
part one, is that you'll be able to get in on a tourist visa basis.
yes, of course. Just for entering the country with a second passport that has is on the visa exception list, yes, you can enter. However, if for instance you want to get an investor visa, it's not the same. Let's use the example of a Mexican passport. Let's say an American citizen born and raised that happens to move to Mexico on their adult life and right now has a Mexican passport. It's not the same thing if they show up to the embassy on the consulate and John Smith with a Mexican passport applies for a investor visa that let's say Juan Ramirez that is born and raised in Mexico. You get the point.
Okay, so a little bit more friction as with the born in the U.S. thing, but still a little bit possible, I guess.
Yes, yes, yes. It's fairly possible.
Fairly possible. I think that's the thing, for a lot of people is we never, of the clients that I've sent you and we've talked about, we never really say, 100% chance of denial, it's impossible, whatever, but we just
Mhm.
say like there's a very low likelihood, and
Yes,
then people kind of lose motivation, and they're like, what,
yes.
I'm not going to go through this insane process and get the apostilles or go to the embassy, blah blah blah. If And so it's kind of weird when we just say like 20% chance of success or something. I don't.
Yes, yes, yes. And I will say for getting for an American citizen that doesn't have a second passport, the chances could be less than that. However, if you grind it out, you can improve your chances. And if I may, I have this story because this is particular on our line of work. There is a Venezuelan, very famous Venezuela comedian. His name is George Harris. He's Venezuelan. I mean, the name is American, but he's Venezuelan, born and raised. He lives in Miami. He's very popular, and he has this stand-up routine when he talks about getting visas and all that kind of stuff. The things that we work. And the funny thing is that Latin Americans, we have this thing, we have this, I don't have the word, this scared thoughts that most likely we are going to be rejected for an American visa, for instance, or a Canadian visa for that matter.
Uh-huh.
So we always go suit up with our best clothes and we gather all the documents and even extra documents that are not necessary in order to try to attempt to maybe get a tourist visa to the US, Canada, or something like that. No? So he laughs, this comedian, the Venezuelan comedian, he laughs that with Americans it's quite the opposite because Americans and Canadians, for that matter, I will say all Western citizens, they grew up dealing with way less bureaucracy that we have to deal here in Latin America, and also because they have this, tier A passports. So Instead, they do quite the opposite of the Latinos. They go usually with shorts and sandals to the embassies, and they do it confident because they think they are gonna be granted
Hmm.
the visa or something like that. No, it's a of course it's a stand up routine, but I mean I found out so much true on that.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So, long story short, is Americans should still make the effort to present themselves well at their appointment.
Yes, yes, because something. I mean, it's a hit and miss situation. And by the way, I'm not saying the all Americans. I don't want to propagate the stereotype of the American that goes abroad and with cargo shorts and sandals. But I mean, it's a stereotype for a reason.
Hmm. Okay. Um. Okay. So, what's the deal? So, should people be like starting off with tourist visas, or like there seems to be a consensus or an idea that you have to invest in property. Actually, I'm going to tee this up better. It's a bit of one of the big things I wanted to have this podcast for was that there seems to be a chicken and egg issue where it's like you need to buy the property to get the visa, or you need the property or you need to get the visa to get the property. And so it's like, which actually comes first? Do you buy the property first to get the investor visa, or do you get the investor visa first to buy the property? Could you kind of walk us through that?
Well, yeah, and I understand the confusion, and mostly what is something in between. Let's say an international wants to purchase a property. Usually, what they do in the process here, the standard procedure regarding real estate here in Venezuela is that you you pay a reservation, let's say 5 to 10% of the property,
Hmm.
and after that the usually the real estate people is going to help you with the legal procedure, the procedure that is on their end regarding the purchase, the transaction. And with those documents you have to go to the embassy and start the process for the visa, and after that you pay the rest. The thing is, on these time frames are very tiresome, and many people get discouraged. Not only the internationals they want the visa, but also the, let's say, the local seller of the property also gets discouraged on most cases.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that. So it's like you want to have that contract to buy, put a deposit down, and kind of apply for the visa, apply for the investor visa, having already signed the contract, but having not fully paid for the property. Or like, why would someone even do that? Like, if the property's like, let's just say you're getting one of these cheaper properties that's 25, 30K, something like that. um are you saying that we should just get the contract first and then apply for the visa? And like you said, probably no one's going to wait because the visa takes a long time to issue. Or should we just, pay for the property and get the property in our name and then do the visa? Or let's just keep doubling down on what exactly we have to do here.
Yes, I mean it's tiresome and it's confusing, but many people grind it out. Both the international that wants to purchase a property and also the local seller. And I know it's tricky and obnoxious, but actually it's been done quite a few times. Prices in on real estate in Venezuela are rising mostly for Venezuelan buyers, but there is a plethora, there is a cohort of internationals that are actually investing on the country.
Okay.
Now, something that I want to add: if the bureaucracy changes for the better on the near future, and I see a good probability for that scenario, that also will mean that property prices were going to sharply increase and have been increasing slowly steady since 2019.
Okay. I don't. Did that answer my question? So, what are we supposed to do? How do we buy the property first, or do we get the visa first?
Well, But I will suggest, if you have no connections to the country, you don't have close ties with the country, if you want to speculate, to say the least, with a between 5 to 10%, depending on the real estate agents and real estate agencies. If you want to take the shot with the 5% reservation, you can start the process. And most of the time, if the visa is not granted, what they will do is give you not the full amount, but give you most of the amount of the 5%.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Language Blend, the new best way to learn Spanish. Language Blend focuses on what you actually need to live and get by abroad with daily one-on-one lessons, a dedicated texting partner. It's like living in a Spanish-speaking country without ever leaving home. Go to languageblend.com for more information. Okay, so put 5% down on the property and then apply for the visa. That's like the way forward.
Yes, kind of.
Okay, and where do you do the 5K? Because we've talked about in previous episodes with yourself, and then another one with Rogue Wealth, that a lot of the transactions actually take place in the United States or in Panama, and so you're paying a bank account that's not in Venezuela. Does that still work in this situation, or does, for the purposes of the visa, do they need to see money coming in the form of the local currency?
No, well, yes. First, that standard still applies. The transactions always occur, most of the time occur between U.S. accounts or Panamanian accounts. Most Venezuelans on middle class and up, they usually have, or they have a relative family member that an account on the U.S. or Panama. So most likely the transaction will be over there. It's very rare to see a transaction in bolivars on local currency, or either they just straight up pay in cash. In cash, I mean physical cash.
Okay, so it sounds like if you do the transaction in Panama or the United States, that's still fine for getting the visa and
Yes,
securing the property.
yes, because what you will need is not that much of the banking transaction. I mean, the banking transaction is going to allow the seller in order to sign all of the documents, the private, I'm talking the private documents. This is not the bureaucratic government, the private documents that will show that, of course, it's a real estate transaction going on, and you can do the due diligence.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think a lot of our audience would be more comfortable with, money changing hands in the US. Um, that I think that probably adds an extra layer of security. And then, of course, they just need I guess, like a local property manager, fixer. That's why you're great, because you're kind of like an all-in-one in Venezuela to take care of things on the ground once
Yes.
the process is kicked off.
Yes, I'm always 2 phone calls away, or for finding this kind of people that with this particular skill set. For instance, that you already mentioned, the property managers and so on.
Okay, awesome. Are there any ways in which the transaction would be different for an American versus a Canadian versus a European in terms of how they go about uh, purchasing the property in general?
Well, first I have to add that after that you get the visa, hopefully you get the green light for an investor visa. After that, there's a couple of registrations that you have to do with local authorities. That are tiresome, but are less difficult than getting the visa. The visa is the hardest part. And after that, yes, you can go to the registration office, and you can do it. I mean, you can legally be the owner of the property. Now, The other issue that I have to mention is that if if you want, I mean, depending on the situation, some people don't even register the property. So people just pay and they get the key. But at the time you fully pay the property, you get the key, regardless if the bureaucratic channels were applied or not.
Hmm. Okay.
And also,
Oh,
I have to mention, and I want to add this, many internationals have Venezuelan girlfriends and wives, and some cases, just to avoid the whole process, they just straight up put the properties on their spouse's name.
and who would that be for? People with a Venezuelan spouse?
Yes, I'm talking internationals with Venezuelan wives, it
Uh huh.
happens a
Yeah,
lot.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
And they have long-term girlfriends, stuff like that, sort of that nature of relationships, and they do it. I mean, and something that happens, this is something particular of Venezuela. I've been in real estate quite some time here. Is that I'm talking Venezuelan couples. They always put the property on their wives' names. Don't ask me why. It's, some,
Really?
it's, it's something cultural. Every time that I sold a property, when there is a Venezuelan couple, a married couple, they always put the property on their wives' names.
Hmm. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
It's a cultural thing, maybe like some matriarchal culture. I mean, I don't do that, by the way, but I'm the exception, not the norm.
Hmm. Yeah, this will put us in a different direction if I ask this question because I do want to keep hammering you on this real estate thing. But okay, so um, the spousal visas or marriage visas, is that a better path? Like, is that a higher likelihood of getting the visa? Is it easier or anything? Like, if you marry a Venezuelan girl, like, let's just say, like, I think a lot of the guys who listen to this, maybe they're in Panama or they're in Colombia, something like that. They're probably somewhere else in Latin America and they meet a Venezuelan girl. Um, and they're probably thinking, like, I wonder how this would work out long term, right? They're meeting them in Colombia or Panama or something. Are they, is the, are we then able to get a Venezuelan spousal visa or like cohabitation visa, family reunification visa, something like that?
Yes, actually, it happens more often than you think. I know after a marriage, if, of course, if it's a legal marriage and not a fraudulent one, you get all the paperwork. On that particular case, you have to go to the Apple style stuff, like the marriage license and stuff of that nature, and the birth certificate. But after that, yes, actually, the process is quite easy, and you get actually you can get the residency, you get the visa, and then you get the residency.
Hmm. Okay, so that sounds like the easiest way to go. A lot easier than even getting a tourist visa.
I will say you can argue that, yes.
Okay, so you could argue easier to get the spousal visa
Although
than.
I have to add, and this goes beyond our line of work, that well, getting married has complications of their own. So, just I have to add that.
Like what?
I mean, just getting just getting married by itself, is a big decision. I don't know about you.
Gotcha. And so if you get married outside of Venezuela, they'll recognize it?
Yes, yes. The only thing is that you have to apostille everything, and
Right.
also if it is outside Latin America or Spain, you have to go to an official
Translate it.
translator. Yes.
Okay. And then you would what? Go to the Venezuelan embassy in Colombia, Venezuelan embassy in Panama or something, and then they would legalize the marriage. And then
Uh, Depends. I mean, depends. Because now something that I want to, I want to make this quote about Venezuelan bureaucracy. I try to do it as much as standardized as I can, but the process itself is not standardized because there is a lot of discretionary things going on each embassy, each office. So this is that makes my work, harder than it is, and depends on the consulate and depends. I will recommend actually just do it here if you can, but still, it's a tiresome process. You have to go back and forth a bunch of times.
All right, Andres. So we talked about investment visas, tourist visas, marriage visas. And naturally, the next step is I wanted to ask a little bit about birth tourism. Birth tourism might sound a little crazy. Who wants to go have a baby in Venezuela? But let's at least kind of talk through what that might look like. Just, I think it's kind of interesting. So, from what I see on Wikipedia, Venezuela is a citizenship by birth country. So if a baby is born in Venezuela, it automatically becomes a Venezuelan citizen. And I guess I was wondering, what might that look like for the rest of the family? Is it possible to get permanent residency, for example, in Venezuela for the parents if they have a Venezuelan child? Do you know anything about this situation?
Well, first, yes, indeed, you're correct. If someone that is born on Venezuelan soil is indeed automatically a Venezuelan citizen. However, for the parents, is not quite the case. I mean, it's not impossible. Like I said before, these legal procedures in Venezuela are not fully standardized. There is a lot of discretionary things, so you can go back and forth, and also depends on the nationality of the parents. But according to on the old days, before I got somehow involved on this thing. Apparently, yeah, there were some cases, but it wouldn't be something that I would recommend to internationals to do this birth tourism in order to get themselves a residency here in Venezuela.
Okay. So kid, yes. Citizenship by birth. Parents, complicated.
Yes, I mean it's not impossible, but it's unlikely at the moment. And at some point in time, some people put it off, according some rumors on the street. But it's not like there is a straight up process.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Cool. What would that even look like? Like if you entered Venezuela on a tourist visa, like are Russians doing this? Are Iranians doing this? You know what I mean? Cubans, people that have people from countries that have good diplomatic ties with Venezuela, because the Venezuelan passport probably is better than the Russian one in a lot of ways. Like, are you seeing maybe Russian families flying down to Venezuela and having kids there?
Well, regarding in Argentina, I heard that on the past year, since the war on Ukraine started. Regarding Russians here in Venezuela, there's been a bunch of Russian citizens that are visiting Venezuela, mostly Margarita Island.
Hmm.
It's because since the war started, the Russians entering this diplomatic loophole where their passports are not recognized on many places, and they are not getting granted tourist visa. So there's just a handful of places that Russians can visit at the moment, and Venezuela is just one of them. It's a very short list, and they are visiting, although they are not staying long term. And also people that work here on different things, maybe things close to the government or close to a couple of we have a couple of Russian companies here, but something like bird tourism, something of that nature. There, I'm not hearing that. Probably a couple of cases, you know,
Hmm.
now and there, but not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Now, something that I'm seeing, and this is something that most people should be surprised, that also we are receiving migrants and refugees. Because when you think Venezuela in recent years, you think the diaspora, millions of Venezuelans have fled the country or live in the country and being migrants and refugees from other countries. But actually, Venezuela has received, still receives a handful of migrants and refugees. They come mostly from rural Colombia, also couple Brazilians. I mean, it's scarce, and some people from Africa and some people from Asian, poor Asian nations.
Okay, cool. And what about Colombians? Because I know it's like there's a weird thing where Colombia is the only country in the Americas, in literally all the Americas, where citizenship by birth is complicated, and basically they don't have citizenship by birth. I think partly due to the Venezuelans that come to Colombia. But I was just kind of curious about with that dynamic. Um, yeah, maybe you could just sort of comment on that dynamic.
Well, I don't have that much information regarding that particular procedure in Colombia. What I can tell is, of course, there are millions of Venezuelans in Colombia. Is by far the country that has received a lot of Venezuelans, but by far around 2.2, 2.5 million Venezuelans are in Colombia, according to official data. And after that, I heard, and please don't quote me on this, that on the places, I mean the hospitals and such, when a Venezuelan family or Venezuelan couple has a child, they have to go with a specific procedure just for these people. And I heard something on that nature, but I'm not the one, has the. I'm not fully briefed on that information.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, I was just curious about birth tourism. Like, it's obviously way out there. Like, someone from the US listening to this is like, what? Have a baby in Venezuela? What are you talking about? But I don't know. I think it's worth kind of exploring for
Yeah, they'll
maybe
do it
for
really.
7 minutes there and just see, just kind of like mentally work through the process, because we are very interested in doing birth tourism in Latin America, and a lot of people are kind of agnostic on the country, whether it be Mexico or Costa Rica or Brazil or whatever. So,
No,
just
but
thought it was kind of worth running through what that might look like. Next question would be about crypto and crypto adoption in Venezuela. Are you seeing a decent level of use or adoption of crypto in Venezuela? Are there crypto bros? Are there crypto companies? Is it possible to exchange crypto for fiat or use crypto to pay for stuff?
well, it's funny, and actually, yes, we have crypto bros. Now that you mention it, we have it everywhere. It's funny, but it's not as much. For instance, it's not like El Salvador or a place like that. What happened is when I will go with Venezuelan crypto, will go as far as 2017. Late 2017, I don't know if you remember that between late 2017 and early 2018, we had the crypto halving cycle. So it just boomed from 3,000 to 19,000. Back then was the top of the market. And the other thing is that back then, you were able to there were a lot of crypto miners, yeah, here in Venezuela, because at the moment the electricity was cheap, and it was basically they were flying under the radar. And actually, we got a couple of people who make some serious money on crypto in late 2017, early 2018. But after that, kind of cool a little bit. Then the mining process started to be cracked down by local authorities because the electricity, we have issues here with electricity, especially back then, and they don't want some random guy having 100 or 1,000 mining units on an apartment or a small house, and because that, of course, that overcharges the electricity system on just that block, and some crackdowns started. After that, it was created this agency, a government agency called the SUNACRIP, that basically regulates who can mine and who cannot. So you have to get a permit, stuff like that. And we had an issue early this year that a faction of the government, actually they were cracked down by corruption. And on that faction were the people within the government that they were bullish on crypto. And after that crackdown, the Sunacrip right now is on hold because they want to put new people. And on a recent communication, the Sunacrip says that it's gonna still take 6 months to reopen. So the people who want to mine in Venezuela need to get a permit, but
Hmm.
the agency is not working at the moment. Some people who have a professional, a legal structure in order to do crypto here in Venezuela, right now actually they are moving to other countries, and there is a kind of a hassle at the moment. That's regarding mining. Now, if you are just an investor, you are pretty much good to go. On a handful of places, you can pay with crypto. Some people actually, you can hear a bunch of times on, I mean, on private networks that they exchange the stable coins, the USDT and stuff of that nature, and of course, the typical Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't know about that, but I know that electricity is very cheap in Venezuela, so it makes sense that it could become a mining center.
Yes, but it's been halted. I mean, because you have to go to a bureaucratic process, and if you have a handful of crypto, these mining machines, you have the rig and so on. They're gonna find out because the electricity bill is gonna spike, and they're going quickly figure it out.
Hmm. Okay,
So you can get
cool.
in trouble if you don't go if you don't do the due process.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense, and it's probably hard to get the license. Um, but yeah, it definitely seems like a country that's very ripe for crypto adoption.
Yes, yes. In Caracas, there's handful of places you can go. I mean, still here, you can exchange Bitcoin and the stable coins and so on. But it is an adoption. Well, it has a market, but it's not like big, 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 like in El Salvador, for instance.
Hmm. Hmm. And when people come down, do you recommend they bring like a couple $1,000 in US dollars cash, or um, like what do you tell people to do when they come down? Do you tell them to bring a bunch of cash?
Not necessarily. I mean, what I recommend is bring small denomination bills because you're gonna need it.
Of US
Change.
dollars though.
Yeah, US dollars though. If you have euros, you're gonna get a bad exchange rate. So do it on USD and get the singles and the fives and the tens because that's the way you're gonna pay with change. And after that, let's say you have a $20 bill, and you're gonna pay let's say a $6 meal. Get the change in bolivars because that's gonna work like small change, for instance, like nickels and quarters and so on. When you are because maybe after that you're gonna pay a small thing, an empanada on a street vendor. It costs $2.5. You can pay with two singles, and the rest, the 50 cents, you can pay it in bolivars. So it's gonna
Is
be
an
easy.
empanada $2.50? That sounds like a
No,
lot.
no. Let's say a couple. I'm talking. Let's say you buy a couple. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know about you, but I never went to an empanada stand and just order one.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, here I've been when I order three, I'm like gonna pass out after because they're so big. The ones in Venezuela are different though. They're like all deep fried. You guys don't really have the like. They're not really like de horno. They're not oven baked. They're all deep fried. Or am I wrong?
No, our empanadas are deep fried. Are not like the Argentinian ones.
Yeah, I don't like the Colombian ones, so I imagine it's the same.
No, no, the empanadas here are great, and yeah, but you can on very specific places you can find the baked ones, but it's very rare to find them, mostly on bakeries. But on every place you're gonna find the deep fried ones.
So if someone was pretty crypto savvy, sorry, just coming back to the crypto, um, would you recommend that they just come down with like should they come down with a bunch of cash and a bunch of dollar bills, or could they just have a crypto wallet and head to Caracas Center and switch a bunch of crypto for the local currency?
No, no, no. You don't want to exchange a lot of the local currency. I would recommend just get the USDT, and after that, get some cash, get some, on USDs. And I know there are a handful of wallets that also you can use at the same time a Visa or a check card, something of that nature. I'm
Hmm.
not that crypto savvy, so if you can do that, excellent, because you can swipe your card here, your Visa, your Master, your international cards, and the exchange rate is gonna be almost as the same as the street level. So just by the convenience, it's a small premium that is worthwhile paying. But yeah, no, I wouldn't rely on a very savvy crypto person. I wouldn't recommend it to rely strictly on crypto.
Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to convert your crypto into gift card balances. These are gift cards that you can spend at hotels.com, Airbnb, Nike, and many more. You may remember Joel Valenzuela, previous podcast guest. He's been living on crypto exclusively since 2015, and he's a big consumer of Bitrefill. And so I asked Joel, I said, what do you like most about Bitrefill? He said that he likes the instant delivery, the precise amount so that you don't have to juggle a lot of gift cards, and he loves the global selection. Nobody else has this much selection of gift cards, over 10,000 gift card options across hundreds of countries. Go to bitrefill.com to sign up, and you can also use the code MyLatinLife for 10% back off your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. Okay, gotcha. So coming back to the investing in real estate, which was really a lot of the reason why I wanted to do this call and just see what's going on. A lot of people have heard about cheap apartments on Isla Margarita and so forth. But it sounds like getting the visa to go visit the apartment is going to be pretty hard, or almost like a roll of the dice. So, like, I imagine you probably help with helping people purchase these properties and managing these properties, administering these properties. Can we do this in 100% hands off way? Where, like, if I have 40 grand ready to go, Andres, can
Hmm.
you help me buy a property? You pay me
Hmm.
my dividends, pay me my my rental income to the states or something, and it's just totally taken care of. I never have to visit, and it's just an investment like any other.
Yes, you can. I mean, but of course, real estate is not like, for instance, a dividend stock. It's going to be some active, at least getting information, but most likely, yeah, you don't want to visit the country, and also depends on the market and location of is a short term rental or a long term. So it requires some active involvement, but most likely, if you don't want to visit the country, you don't have to.
Okay. And so active in what way? Like if I have you as the property manager or you introduce me to a local property manager, can we just make it 100% hands off and then you pay me my rental income to the States?
Yeah, it can be square. I mean, now something that I have to mention to real estate investors that listen to this message is that we don't have very much of a serious industry regarding real estate managers that I know in the States is very big. And actually, some people, there are even some billionaires that started on that industry. In Venezuela, it's not big. Usually, it's people, someone you can trust, low profile, and they manage just a handful of properties, and make ends meet doing that. But it's not a developed industry here. And actually, I spoke to several people, throughout my years, that I said, you have the talent to be a very good property manager. And I tell them, in the United States, this is a big deal. It's a big industry, and some people actually can become millionaires with that. And they don't believe me. They think, this is, science fiction, that you can make a good living with the property management. But yeah, I can square a couple people depending on the market.
Hmm. Sounds like maybe there's an opportunity for you to build a professional class property management agency.
Yeah, maybe I'll put a. It's gonna be on, my bucket list.
And why would that not exist, by the way? Like, why would there not be property managers?
I would say that it's mostly a cultural thing. I mean, we have it, but it's not like an industry. And also, it's many things. I can go cultural. I can allow maybe cultural things. In Venezuela, it's not that much of a trust between just blindly handing over some random people your property. And the other thing is that the rental market, the long-term rental market, is not as developed in Venezuela, like for instance in the States, where most people are renters. They have a salary and they have to pay a rent. Here in Venezuela, the people who are on wages, on salaries, they cannot afford to pay a rent. And the people who can do it, they straight up on their home. So
Hmm.
it's not like, for instance, in the United States, when you have a lot of rental income coming. They own the property, or they live on their grandparents' house or something of that nature.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So it sounds like the low trust society kind of gets in the way of, you know, like allowing another person to manage your property for you.
Yes, yes. But, I mean, the service does exist, but not as sophisticated as you see in the United States, when there are companies that manage, 1,000 apartments, something of that nature. Usually, it's very trusted people that manage just a handful, like two or three. In some cases, just one property, and that's it.
Mm. Okay. So it sounds like real estate is not a great way to build wealth in Venezuela, or are there lots of people with dozens of properties?
No, there are a handful of people who actually owns a bunch of properties, but it's not way to create wealth. It's something that you do when you already have the wealth.
Hmm.
Remember that we have a non-existent mortgage market, so you cannot leverage your way into creating wealth via real estate. And so you either buy because you see an opportunity straight up in cash, or because it's a lifestyle purchase, or because it's a call option, depending on the situation.
Okay. Okay. So someone listening to this is like, all right, it's going to be tough to get a property manager.
I mean, I can, with a couple calls I can get one. I mean, it's not that's the least of the worries.
Okay. That's the least of the worries. Okay. What are some other common questions that people have when it comes to investing in Venezuela, or I guess better yet, like what are some of the gotchas or issues that have happened along the way? Like you've helped people from all different countries, who knows, US, Germany, Italy, whatever. You've helped people from all over the world attempt to invest in Venezuela. You got any good stories about like crazy stuff that's happened?
Well, there is some, miscommunication issues, because one thing is, you have this particular mindset on the States, you have a different particular mindset on Western Europe, and you have Latin America, and of course you have Venezuela that has difference compared to the rest, even from the rest of Latin America, even from Colombia. And what happened is they most of the time they come and you have to explain things that for me, of course, there are everyday stuff. For them is new things, like for what I just mentioned, getting the getting the cash. Talking to a client says, yeah, Venezuela is just it's like the street club. You have to take singles and stuff. And other thing is regarding the Airbnbs, because internet is a hit and miss situation. You have to manage it well. It's not like most places on the world. I don't know how much. I mean, you have, of course, way more experience in Mexico. Probably I don't know how easy or how hard it is to get good internet on an Airbnb.
It's
So
pretty good.
okay, I guess so, but I mean, in Venezuela, it's a hit and miss situation. And what other thing? Of course, many people don't know even that you need a visa if you come from the US and Canada. The process on real estate. What else? I got the crypto stuff, of course. No, nothing much to answer. I mean, if you're a crypto guy and you have your wallet and so on, you can use it here. No big deal. Worst case scenario, and this is not the case at the moment. You just use a VPN, and that's it. What else? After that, and the other thing here's something that I can differentiate Venezuela with the rest of the countries in Latin America, because usually most people, especially from Western nations, think that Venezuela is cheap because it's a Latin American nation, and also an impoverished nation, and that's not quite the case. Um, the other thing is most people in Venezuela are having impoverished, and you only have like a 10% of the population, let's say 15 to be generous, that are either middle class, and just less than 1% that are very rich. And business, the business, I'm talking restaurants, bars, whatever might be the case, they cater towards the high end clients, and they're not kind of middle class services. We have it, of course, but it's not as much on compared to other countries in Latin America, and even in the States and Canada and Western Europe. So the experience in Venezuela sometimes is gonna look expensive because you either have to take the quote unquote high class, let's say, option, because
Hmm.
there is not a middle class. Of course, on submarkets we have middle class restaurants and middle class hotels and so on, but sometimes Venezuela can feel
Yeah,
expensive.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's like if you really want to have that Western lifestyle, you got to pay for it. But if you're willing to live like a local, it's cheap to live like a local, but it's expensive to live Western style. If that makes sense.
Yes. Now, I would say it's quite the opposite, because living like a local is a terrible life. I have to say, it's not. It's not. It is what it is. However, if if you want to live high class, after I will say, I put this threshold on $2,000 per month of cost of living. After 2,000, yeah, you can live pretty comfortably, but still it's hard to get for the average Venezuelan get the 2,000. And I would say between 1,000 and 2,000 is where the middle class is.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, let's talk about budget cost of living for a second. So, if someone wants to come down to Venezuela, maybe work remote for a month, maybe they have a passport that allows that. How much should they budget for?
Okay, well, first, depending on the location, because usually, depending on the requirements of my clients, what I mention is what they need, what they don't need. Some people need the beach, some people like, colder weather, some people like more development, some people like more of a small town. So that's gonna significantly impact your budget. You can go, for instance, in the west side, I'm sorry, on the east side of Caracas. You know, the fanciest side of Caracas is going to be the most expensive area to live in Venezuela. If you go to let's say Merida, on Merida it's going to be cheaper. It's beautiful, it's cute, Merida. And on the mill, maybe you have cities like Margarita Island, maybe Valencia, places of that nature. I will say just a couple thousand, unless unless you want to live like a backpacker or something like that. But if you want, the fully quote unquote American middle class experience, I'll say just couple thousand dollars per month.
Okay, a couple thousand, pretty reasonable. Awesome. All right. So we've talked about in this episode, we've talked about the investor visa, tourist visa, marriage visa, birth tourism, crypto, cost of living, property management. What other topics might you add to this roster? What other topics are pretty common in terms of expats and travelers to Venezuela and concerns they have?
Well, I will say it's the mindset because some people, this is something that is being very hard to educate people. It's something that's why I create so much content every single day. Is that people have still the vision of Venezuela compared to the 2017, that it was worse. It was probably the worst year of being Venezuelan and living in Venezuela, with all of the protests and the social turmoil and the political instability and so on. And of course, we had a lot of coverage on the mainstream media, CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, you name it. And people still have this mindset, and also they keep repeating that Venezuela is communist or socialist. That's not the case. I would say right now we have something that looks like crony capitalism, and we are a long way to go, but we are better compared to those days. And of course, we have some other extra issues. I'll have to say things improved since the de facto dollarization started in the country since 2018, late 2018.
Hmm.
And so the country is not some Venezuela is not some country, like a sub-Saharan country, but it's not like Mexico neither. And somewhere on the middle. So now Venezuela has options for everything. I mean, if you want to be, high class and safety and so on, so you can get basically pretty much anything you want in Venezuela as long as you are willing to pay a premium. And of course, we have in Venezuela, we have the quote unquote Latin hammer, uh, that of course is on all of the countries in Latin America. In Venezuela, it's a little bit, heavier, but just a little bit. And actually, if you plan, you the due diligence and do the proper planning, you can avoid it or pay a premium in order to avoid the bad experience, like having good internet or being on a good location and so on.
Yeah, makes sense. You got to be ready. You got to be mentally prepared for the Latin hammer.
Yeah, you cannot avoid it, but it's part of the experience.
Hmm. What's the Latin hammer for people that are unfamiliar?
It's all of these nuances and inconvenience that you have to deal in Latin America compared to a more developed nation. That's how I define it, at least.
Okay, I like that one. I like that one. Cool. Cool. Um okay. I'm debating. I'm debating something, Andres.
Mhm.
If we should talk about dating.
For me, by all means.
I know last time we had an episode, you mentioned, a couple things about dating, and I was like, "Damn, he went in." And then, I've been following you for a year now. I've been seeing your channel, and you do talk about it. I'm like, "Geez, I don't want to get in trouble though." I don't want to get in trouble. Um, I don't want to get in trouble, but but you gotta be honest. That's probably one of the main reasons people want to go to Venezuela.
Yes, I know. Don't tell me that.
And I think you told me you have people book consultations with you just to ask about dating.
Yes, and in some cases it's not like they're dating in they wanna come to Venezuela to date. They're already dating someone abroad because we have a big diaspora and just want to check out if everything is running smoothly.
Hmm. But it's just the barrier is so high because like getting a tourist visa is insane. You got to be pretty committed to dating in Venezuela. Like I feel.
No, well, some people are very committed, more often than you think. Yes, yes.
What do Europeans get, by the way, in terms of visa free? I gotta check this.
No, Western Europeans, Venezuela is part of the Schengen Act, the Schengen Treaty. So Western Europeans, people from the EU, can freely come visa free to Venezuela. They
Visa
don't have
free.
an issue.
Okay, how
And
long do we get? I'm looking this up. I always use Italy as the example because it's one of the best ones. But so an Italian visa free 90 days.
after that, you can extend it. I mean, it's something that I it's a hit and miss situation, but most cases when I'm seeing on the last year, they're getting the extensions. So maybe you can spend like 5 months, an extra 5 months.
An extra 5 months.
No,
So
no, I'm
you
sorry, extra 2 months, extra two
extra
months.
2 months. And
Yes.
how would someone extend that?
You have to go to the office of the government agency that runs the identification,
Uh-huh.
and it's a hassle. It's gonna take 1 or 2 days, and wait in line and so on. But most people get it.
Is that only in Caracas or do they have different offices?
They have different offices. I mean, there are
Okay.
offices on every major.
Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Quick break from the podcast to tell you about Language Blend, the best new way to learn Spanish. Language Blend was co founded by Jake Nomada, friend of the podcast, decade of experience in Latin America. And Jake and his team, they put everything into this program that they wish they had in terms of how to level up quickly with your Spanish language skills. Because the faster that you can get conversationally fluent in Spanish, the better the experience that you're going to have in Latin America. So go to languageblend.com for more information.
City.
Oh yeah, this reminds me of a question I should be asking, which is, are visa runs acceptable in Venezuela? Like, if I want to basically more or less live in Venezuela, could I come for 90 days, go to Colombia for 1 day, basically just go off over the border, and then come back to Venezuela again and basically do that infinity times, or do they not like that?
Well, it's something that I haven't tried, and I don't want to use my clients as guinea pigs for that. Uh, Eventually, they will find out. However, if there are some ways you can extend your stay if you really want to, if you really want to be long term, there are legal ways that are actually fairly simple. Well, for as simple as the Venezuelan bureaucracy can be, and you can manage it. What I would recommend is, depending on the situation, spend the first 90 days, and after that, there are strategies that you can do, and that one can be applied as well.
I
Just
feel
on the
like it would
short.
work. I feel like they would allow you to do a border run.
No, I mean, it wouldn't be my first choice if someone wants to overstay their visit to Venezuela. So there are legal ways that you can do it. So you don't have to go to the border run. You
All
can
right.
you can apply something else that is going to be legal and simpler.
Okay. So let's just say we have Europeans listening to this. They get visa free 90 days in Venezuela, and they came to you and said, Andres, I need perfect internet, or as close as we can get in Venezuela. I need perfect internet so that I can work online, and I want to come. and I want to, maximize my experience in Venezuela. I want to have a pretty nice apartment. I'm down to be in the beach. I'm down to even be in the mountains or in the city. Where are we going? I'll give you free reign, unlimited budget. Make me an itinerary. Where are you booking me for 90 days?
Okay, well, first depends on the requirement of some people like the city, some people like the mountains, some people like
I
beaches.
told you,
Most
either one. Wherever I can go, get some internet
okay,
and maybe some dating options.
okay. Well, what I will do first, I don't like my mantra is getting ROI, and I don't like to overspend for anything. I like to get, but I don't like to be stingy. So I like to get the best. Get the
Unlimited
more.
budget. Unlimited budget.
Okay, well, but I like to take care of the finance of my clients. I mean, on every regard. So I don't like my clients to overspay.
Okay.
What I will do on that particular case, I mean, if dating is that much important, I mean, because depends on the dating, because the best dating markets are not necessarily the best cities when you have full experience. And I've done several consultations about that because many of my clients, I mean, a handful of my clients, they just want to be for dating. They don't care about the beach or going to the Angel Falls or visiting the historic
Okay.
sites of
Well, we're
Caracas.
not that savage.
Okay.
I feel like it's probably decent everywhere.
Okay. I'm gonna give you the average for everything. If you want nice cost of living, having good internet, also a good dating market, and I will play it between Valencia and Maracay.
Maracaibo. Okay. I wasn't
Maracay, no,
surprised.
Maracaibo, no, Maracay is a different city.
Maracay. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
So no,
Maracay.
some internationals confused because the people from Maracaibo, they are very good. They're like the Texans of Venezuela. So they push a lot their region. So that's why Maracaibo is well known. But I'm,
Okay,
I'm not
gotcha,
talking
gotcha.
that
Yeah, I see, I
Maracaibo.
see, I see it, I see it. It's like on the Lago de Valencia. So it's basically
Correct,
Valencia is on one side of the lake, and then Maracay is on the other side of the lake. So
correct.
this is the sweet spot. This is the best region for kind of like everything, good internet, things pretty safe, stuff to do.
Well, of course, the safety is going to depend on the particular location that you're going to stay. Because actually Maracay is not a safe city. Valencia is safer than Maracay, and it's gonna depend with a lot of things. Actually, the Maracay is on the Aragua state. Is one of it's not the most. It's not one of the safest. And actually, a major thing happened on that state where with a prison that was very popular here in was very unfamous. It was an infamous prison in Venezuela. And actually, there is this big gang that is known all over the world that comes is called Tren de Aragua. It comes from actually
Right.
that region.
Oh, true. Yeah, yeah,
So that's why it depends the strategy because I can send you on Margarita Island, for instance, or Caracas, but they have bad. They're not the best dating markets. I mean, for everything else, they're great,
Why
but
would
they're
Caracas not be a good dating market?
because it's a winner takes it all market. It's not. It's not for let's say the unseasoned, unexperienced. Now, what I recommend is that if you can visit Caracas, I mean, if your mindset is dating, at least just the thing that you're gonna see, the level, the quality is gonna be high. That's a guarantee. But after that, if it's manageable or not, that's up to you. Because
Right,
also
right, right.
because
Okay, like
Caracas,
a little less innocent.
yes, because
Yeah,
Caracas attracts the hottest, the hottest talent regarding dating, but at the same time attracts the most millionaires. So it's a high competition. Also, the big guys, the celebrities, and so on. So it's a very tough
gotcha,
market.
gotcha. Would you say overall that Valencia has a higher quality of life, not just dating, but like higher quality of life in Valencia than Caracas?
Depends on the area, depends on the region, depends on the sun. Actually, some people have moved from Valencia to Caracas, so depends on the situation.
because there's a lot of things that you have to manage
Like if you
regarding.
had basically an unlimited budget, you can spend a couple grand a month on rent, something like that.
Well, um, I would say, I can go Margarita, I can go Valencia, because close to Valencia you have Tucacas and the beaches.
Hmm.
Probably will do between Margarita. I will be between Margarita and Valencia, and after that I'll have to go with the nuances and in order to make the final decision, because I run these scenarios with many of my clients, and at the end they want one thing and choose another city, and they go like that, or at the
So,
same.
oops, a little fire alarm here in the building, but we'll keep going. That's my Latin hammer. So, and in our previous, like Isla Margarita has always been the perennial winner, the perennial place where a lot of the expats want to go. Makes sense, obviously. And then I think one of the big takeaways people had from our first episode a year ago was putting Lecheria on the map and putting Barcelona on the map, Puerto de la Cruz, that kind of region, which you actually haven't mentioned yet. And it sounds like now we're a little bit hotter on the Valencia area, and then the beaches near there, which, as you mentioned, is Tucacas and Moroccoy.
Yes, correct. The Morocco National Park. And well, now mentioning Lecheria, Lecheria is, it's a beautiful city. It's the city where actually I'm right now. It has a bunch of good things and bad things going on. The good things, safe. It's very safe. Also, if you're a real estate investor for the long term, one of the, it's on the short list of the best markets for long term. But after that, it's not as touristic. The vibe is not there. It's a small city. Also, it's a city that attracts rich people here. And for instance, the dating market here is terrible, I have to say, unless you're a big
In
baller.
Lecheria?
Yes, it's
Really?
actually,
I'm
yeah.
surprised because, like, it's, there's like millions of people there.
No, no, Lecheria is
No,
small.
I know, but like when in the metro area, if you include Barcelona and all that.
Yeah, because the thing is, the expectation over there is still Lecheria. So it's not. I mean, it's not the dating market is probably the worst thing about Lecheria. So that's if you're. I love my city because I like the safety. I like the way that I'm surrounded by beaches and canals and so on. But actually, for dating, I have my strategies in order to get by here. But it's not the for dating. I wouldn't recommend living here in Lecheria just for the sake of dating.
Gotcha, gotcha. You import them there.
Yes, some geo arbitrage. That's one of the strategies actually.
Okay, well, I'm sure we put Valencia on the map for some people. I definitely knew about it. Like it has a pretty cool little colonial center and architecture and stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of nice. It's kind of like a mini version of Caracas, I will say. It's not exactly like that, but just bear with me.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, let's end this section before we get in too much trouble. But that's some good intel. That's some good intel.
Okay.
All right, cool. I think we've pretty much reviewed everything that I was curious about. Any final thoughts or things that you want to mention as we get to wrapping up?
Some first regarding dating, something that I want to add. Yeah, yeah, because I want to add because people miss, they don't get fully the idea. I
Okay.
mean, it's not like you're just gonna show up and that's it. I mean, you require some, be assertiveness, know what you're doing regarding not only dating overall, but it's not like just because you are a quote unquote gringo, yeah, that's it. You have to work on a couple of things, and also you have to know that people here in Venezuela, you have a bunch, most of people are impoverished, but you have a handful of people that actually are quite wealthy or they have a good financial situation. So it's something that just for being, a Western and having a little bit of cash, you're gonna, you're gonna kill everything here. It's not gonna be the case.
something that I'm noticing mostly with Europeans. And the other thing I will have to say is, unlike, for instance, Colombia, that in Colombia, I mean, the past, let's say, 7 years or so, it's been run down by a bunch of Americans. And in Venezuela, it's not the case because the Westerners that we have are Europeans, but we don't have. It's very rare to see American besides the oil industry. And if you come from America or Canada, you're gonna be, more of a rare commodity compared to Colombia. But still, it's not, like a silver bullet. You still have to put some things going. You need to have things going on.
Got it. Got it. Well, overall, this is definitely the benefit of a second passport, whether it be a European passport or a Latin American passport. Because
Yeah.
even I'm looking it up, and Mexicans have the same rights. They have 90 days visa free in Venezuela.
Yes.
So, as we hammer on this topic all the time on the podcast and on Twitter, that everyone needs to get a second passport because it, among other things, it opens up greater travel opportunities. So, guys, get your Mexican passport or Portuguese passport or something like that, and that'll open up more of the world to you, including Venezuela, because it definitely sounds like tourist visa is the way to go. Although, we've talked about a number of opportunities on this podcast. So, Andres, take this time, take as long as you need to um, tell people where they can find you, how they can get in touch, and where you would like to direct the audience's attention.
Okay, well, first I have my consultation service, Venezuela Insider, Insider Consulting. The website is venezuelainsider.com. The links are all over my social media. I'm on Twitter. Also, I have my YouTube channel, Venezuela Insider. I'm also have the audio experience on Venezuela Insider on any podcast platform. I'm on Instagram as well. And also recently, I opened a new TikTok account, and also I'm on Facebook. But most likely, you're gonna see most of my stuff in on YouTube and Twitter, and of course my website.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time, Andres. This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, my guest today, Andres Villarroel, Venezuela Insider. Check him out, venezuelainsider.com. Thanks again.
Thank you.